modify the site plan. Again, there's no criteria of which they say to make that decision. It is simply that is the text of the land development code, and if additional time for a decision is needed to allow for resolution of outstanding issues, the city council may table the application, which we did, for a period not to exceed 45 days. So we'll have to take action tonight. And that is all I have. If you have questions for me.
Anyone have any questions for Becky?
Thank you for how thorough you were. Appreciate it.
Anybody?
Would the applicant like to come up and say anything?
Mr. Mayor, and City Council. I got up at 3 o'clock.
I've been called a lot of things, but
And then I just went to a middle school fundraiser at Sunny's, so I smell like garlic. You all received my letter, Robert Doan from Coppool on behalf of the applicant. And, I mentioned in the letter that a lot of times when developers are in front of you, it's usually because it's on some type of discretionary matter. A lot of times it's changing the zoning, asking for higher density, or it's a PD. Also known as kind of contract zoning, because a lot of things are negotiable. And those typically garner a lot of attention, and it's usually what, I think the public would perceive, and I perceive as developers asking for something they're not entitled to. Asking for a change, asking for something different than is in the comprehensive plan or in the land development code. This isn't that. That's not what this is. When Orange City annexed to this property and put the multifamily zoning in place, they said, we want this to be here. This is the project Orange City was talking about when they imposed that zoning. When the land development code was developed and modified over time, and amended over time, to put certain setback requirements and height requirements and density requirements and landscaping requirements and tree mitigation requirements and stormwater requirements and emergency services requirements and utility requirements. Very specific and thoroughly researched standards were met, were designed and implemented. And this project meets or exceeds all of those to ensure quality project. So while it does come before you because of its size, I think what Becky was referring to is the fact that there's no criteria here saying does it meet this, does it meet this, does it meet this. Because the only thing that it's here for is the fact that it's a big size and to review whether or not it does in fact meet all those criteria, and it does. And so that's why we're here, not because the developer's asking for something they're not entitled to, they're not. This is exactly what your comp plan and your land development code says should be here, and it's designed in the way it should be designed. And so that was the point of the letter, to say, it's easy to get the motor memory of when a project is in front of you. And I know sometimes the public, understandably, can discern the difference between when a developer's asking for something they're not entitled to, and when we're in more of an administrative review type scenario, like we are here tonight. Incidentally, plugging my next town hall meeting will be We Are the Traffic on November 28th in the old historic courthouse in the land, talking about these kind of things and trying to help talk about the lingo. And we'll have a county traffic engineer recently retired and another traffic engineer there to talk about it, because things can be confusing. It's easy to get confused with this terminology that we don't see all the time. But when we talk about, I don't mind growth, I just want good growth. Well, Orange City's comp plan and land development code says what good growth is in Orange City, and this is it, and that's what your staff report says. And so that's why we would love to see you through the site plan. Thank you.
Great.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Any questions for Rob?
Nobody just comments.
I'll any comments. Is that good?
Good.
Okay. I'll open this portion of the meeting to the public. If anyone would like to speak to this.
Stephen Sanders, 623 Swan Range Road. Now I understand what this gentleman just put in front of you sounds nice and great and all, but he's not wrong. We set ourselves up for failure. The fact that I don't want it doesn't make it not able to go there. But there are actual facts in this. So if you look at 214 on your guys' pages, you'll see that there's a little bit of a difference between the fire truck entrances and where they're predicting that they'll be. And this is for a perfect scenario, not an emergency scenario. We're hoping that these guys hit the mark every single time. Look at the gates, look at everything else, not just what that one sheet of paper. I'm talking all of the site plans, because there's a mix-up. That being said, he's still not wrong. This meets all the requirements. The land development code, he's not wrong. It just sucks. This is my home, having another set of apartments there. If you also look there, it says there's gonna be 220 parking spots. I don't know about you, but I thought this was 109 family unit apartment, so that's 220. That means there's gonna be 2 adults in every one, so that's another set of kids in each public house. Again, I know that the student growth index survey has a scientifically matched parcel data that we hope is accurate. I'm telling you right now, you go to see these houses in any one of these homes, they've got 2, 3, 4 kids. I can tell you right now, my one street alone, my one street, I have 14 kids on one street. I live right across the street. I'll be living right across from this. And if you think otherwise, you're sadly mistaken. But again, like he said, he's not wrong. This meets all of the stuff. But I hope that you all remember this as we move forward, because more of this cannot continue to be in Orange City. And you're gonna have this butt up against the dog park. Good luck to any dog walkers. I mean, you're gonna have construction equipment, putting concrete, you're gonna have excavators. You already have the parking area, you already have the gel dump site there, and then you have a dirt road here. Those poor dogs are just gonna be engulfed with sand and dirt, but just because they're right there. And I've already brought this to the attention of the Florida Department of Environmental Protection. They said everything's safe and fine, but I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna be watching this project from the top to the bottom, all of your site plans, every silt screen, every water management device that you guys have. I promise you, you can ask the city, I'm in pain, I'm annoying, I will be part of your project and you won't even want me there. This is unacceptable, and I hate the fact that this is going in, but again, he's not wrong. This meets all the exceptions. The only thing I still have is the fire entrance and the kids. So with that, I can spend my time.
All right, is there anyone else that would like to address the council? Come on up, please state your name and address for the record, please.
Mariana Beisch, 524 East University. I have a question about the gopher tortoises. You said there is no known tortoises on that property. Who looked for them and how do you know there aren't any? Because if you build this, they're gonna be buried alive and that just makes me, I can't imagine.
Becky will explain that, they've done a study.
Yep, can you tell me?
You want me to do it?
Yeah, just explain for a bit.
The environmental assessment report was dated March 31st, 2023, and March 31st, no gopher tortoises or burrows were located on site. However, an updated gopher tortoise survey dated within 90 days of the start of construction will be required. Compliance with the permitting requirements and guidelines of the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission will be required if any gopher tortoises are found on site. They don't entomb them, so the study wasn't updated, but it is condition number 5 on the draft resolution. Who's speaking, raise their hand.
So there'll be another study done before,
They'll have to do a 100% gopher tortoise study before they start clearing.
but
But who is looking for this? Who is
come
it?
on up and speak into the mic, please, for the
The
record.
environmental specialists are the ones.
Who is that person so we can talk to that person?
I can give you my card and I can give you their name and number.
You can do that?
Oh, of course,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Because we would like to know who it is.
Sure. Absolutely.
Great, thank you. Anyone else like to speak to this?
When they are found, whether it's,
Wait a minute, we're still in.
Oh, sorry.
Anyone else like?
Middle Road, 220 South Carpenter Avenue. My wife and I have been in our city going on 35 years. You used to be able to drive down Woodland without waiting in traffic for an hour and a half as the school goes in and retires in the afternoon. That's an exaggeration, obviously, but it's 180 days a year, the school days. We've seen so many changes. We've seen so many forests denuded. We've seen so many apartments go up, condominiums go up. I like to echo what Stephen said. The gentleman is correct. I disagree with his entitlement term. I don't know of anybody more entitled to that land than nature and the wildlife. But we're beyond that, evidently. But I would like to ask a more practical question. How much would it cost me to move in to one of these apartments, one of these housing facilities? 1, 2, and 3. What would be my cost
Well,
as a potential
I don't
resident?
think that's really pertinent to what we're discussing.
Oh, it isn't.
I disagree. I think it is.
Wait a minute.
Is it low-income housing? Is it something that people can afford to live in? Or what would be the standard income necessary to live here? That would be my question. But if it's irrelevant at this point, I
I'm
apologize.
just going to answer that.
I believe these are planned to be market rate apartments, there's not a set aside right now for low income.
What's the market rate?
Thank you. All right, anyone else? There's someone in the back there.
Hi, my name is Sabrina Williams. I'm representing Greenleaf Gardens. I'm the site manager there. I think our main question is, I did take a look as well, and you're correct, majority of the buildings are kind of side facing to it, so it's not, intrusive. And as you mentioned, there is a lot of foliage that is there. And I know the property lines meet. Is the development planning on leaving any of that foliage there in addition to what's on our side? Like, how dense will that be to provide screening, I suppose?
Good question. You want me to take that? Yeah, and it's probably best, so their side, the Hidden Oak side, will be clearing most of the trees along your shared property line. So your 55 feet of trees in this area, between these two arrows, and up to 120 feet here, when that longer building comes, all of that stays. The retaining wall is proposed to go on the shared property line. So, and they'll be mass graded. So they won't be keeping any of the existing trees on Hidden Oak side.
But on our side, we have anywhere between 55 and 100.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's fine.
All right, anyone else like to speak to this? Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public portion of this and bring it back to the council for discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a couple things. Last time when we had this, I had a lot of questions. And actually, I spent some time with Becky. We walked Greenleaf, we walked in Greenleaf. Actually, we did this today. We walked Greenleaf because of the density, to actually see the footage. And it is quite dense, but there is a couple of things, and I was talking to Becky about it, that we can do. Right at the 55-foot mark up towards the top, there's some mature trees. And so I told Becky, when we're gonna be doing the tree survey, is prior to any building, anything being torn down, I want those trees marked. Which ones? Because I want to make sure that they don't take down any of the mature trees that are right on the line. That actually, I do believe will be on Greenleaf's side. So if they have to curve the wall in a way, they curve it towards their property, not towards Greenleaf. There is some mature trees that give a very good, there's a lot of protection for Greenleaf in there as far as the greenies. But I've seen so many developers come in and just clear cut and go, oops, and then just plant trees. And I'm just gonna make sure that so I told back, and we can request them to do that, to go in and mark the trees.
and let us know which one's intriguing. And I'm gonna be one of the ones, as I'm sure other people will, I'm gonna check it out myself. Because I think if they stated the plan and all that, I felt comfortable, even though I wasn't last time, I felt comfortable out there walking. I said, we walked from one end of Greenleaf all the way down from the 125 foot that goes all the way to the fence that belongs to the dog park and our thing. So I mean, it was that, on the south side, there's plenty of distance. But when you get up towards Ohio, it's not. But there's still a good 55 foot. And it's pretty dense. A lot of camper trees, which I know are invasive, but they still give a lot of green. So I think we just, as I've just asked Stafford, let's make sure we watch that line. And, you know, and make sure that we keep as much coverage and protection of the natural that's there for Greenleaf's plantation. The one thing I'll have to argue with, and I pointed out to her today, we did see a gopher turtle burrow today. Now, I will say, it was on the Greenleaf side, because that's the side we were on, but it was a burrow. And there's no doubt about it. And if they want to ask me, I'll be glad to walk them out there and show it to them. But it's on the Greenleaf side, so I'm saying, but it is definitely. Now, I didn't sit there to see how active it was, but it's still open. So I thought that was good.
Was it oval or round?
It was open. It was, I've lived for all my life. I know it goes. So there was one on this side. If he crosses over on their side, I don't know. But there is one there. Yeah, because so I thought it was easy. But I think the bigger thing, I agree, I mean, you know, I'm upset the school board didn't show up, and yes, I would still love the school board to come back at some future date to show us how this formula works, because I have to agree with what some of the citizens are saying, is there's gonna be more students in there, and we've already have overcrowded. Right now, Orange City Elementary is at 117% capacity. This is by their own numbers. When we put in the apartment complex, based on their current math formula, it's gonna go up to 118%. They say they can't issue a letter of currency once it hits 119. That's just too close a number. So I would like to see how they get the numbers and what data they're using. So yes, if we get the school board back in here, I'd like to see it. I understand, by the rules and all that, yes, they meet it. I feel a lot better about the protection, because last time I was really upset about the Greenleaf, protecting those people that I think we can do that. But what this really comes down to, and this is something that I'm gonna probably bring up under discussion or new business, these site plans that we have were developed in 1997. In 1997, the Orange City wanted growth. Well, guess what? It's 2023. Maybe we're not looking for growth anymore. So maybe it's time for us to vet all our zoning maps and comprehensive. So we're gonna have some things I'm gonna bring up under new business to try to protect this. I mean, there's other ways of looking at it. You can do performance-based, which looks at the impact on the area around it. It doesn't matter how tall or what's going on. There's other ways that we can look at this. I think the key thing is, and even Rob said it, when we approve this, and they're within the rights, it was 1997. It's time to look at it again. Everybody keeps saying the growth. Well, okay, we've grown, we've done a good job. Maybe it's time for us to look at the growth and say, maybe we don't want to grow like that anymore. Maybe we need to change our rules. That's up to us up here. That's going to take some time from city staff, something to look at. I can't hold that against the current developer, but we can actually make these things for the future development of our area. So things I'm going to bring up during due business. Like I said, I like the idea that the tree survey will allow us to do that. Like I said, I wish the school board would have been in there. I think there's more things that we can do, but I understand, Rob, even before you got your letter, this was set up before any of us were sitting up here. Well, maybe you were up here, but before the rest of you, 97. That before us. But it doesn't mean we can't fix it for the future, so.
Questions or comments or anything?
I like wildlife, but I don't understand it all. When they do the survey and they find these animals, are they displaced somewhere else?
They relocate them,
Did you relocate
Oh,
them?
yeah.
They love it. That's good.
Okay, Alex?
I'm of the same opine, and I have not digressed that with me wanting to pass this just because, like everybody, like the lawyers said, they abided by all the rules that we set forth. Having said that, I am steadfast into what Mr. O'Connor said, that we need to start looking at what we're doing with our zones and maybe adjusting it accordingly moving forward. But I feel that if we vote no to this, we're putting ourselves in a lot of liability issues, and it's tantamount to moving the goalpost in the middle of the game, and I don't think the developer deserves that. They've done everything they had to do, so just from here on moving forward, we need to look into what the future of zoning. Thanks.
No, I agree fully with Alex. I really like what Bill had to say. You know, I think we're all in agreement. And just like, you know, I brought up the motion at the last meeting, and it was, I mean, there's legal, you know, things at play here, and, you know, you can't go against what we've already set forth as our rules and regulations. If they meet them, then that's what happened, you know, what we're tied into.
Anything else? All right.
I make a motion to pass resolution number 295-23.
Motion, go to second.
And that motion should read, for the Hidden Oaks Apartments final site plan with the 6 conditions stated in section 1 of the staff report.
Okay, so I need to say that.
To say as moved.
As moved.
Good.
Vice Mayor O'Connor,
Reluctantly, yes.
Councilmember Stafford. Here. Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Darn,
Also reluctantly, yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Ware.
Yes, resolution number 295-23 passes. I'm just gonna make a comment. We've done a good job with smart growth in our city, okay? And we're doing the right thing with urban infill, is in the grand scheme of things by the planners associations and people tell us. And I know people don't like hearing this, but I always say it. If there's a piece of property that you really like and you really want to save, get some people together and buy it in a land trust or whatever. A good example, there was a lot across the street from my house, went up for sale. I didn't want anybody to build on it, so I bought it, okay? So it's simple, but I know we have other issues that we need to address, so I'll acknowledge that. Okay, let's move on. We are on items 8A, discussion and action. Discuss CEF 1 mile walkathon special event application request to use Mill Lake Park. And Ms. Arrington,
Yes,
you're
sir.
up.
Yes, sir. This is a request from Child Evangelism Fellowship of East Central Florida. They're a not-for-profit children's ministry. They submitted a special event application, and actually there's 2 in your agenda item because they amended it. The only difference was the change in date. The original was for December 9th, and their new time is on April 6th, 2024. From the event itself will be from 8:30 in the morning till 9 a.m. It takes about half an hour that they're anticipating to walk around Mill Lake Park. But the event itself will be from 6:30 in the morning, where you come and set up and do registration, to they plan to be out there by 10 in the morning. They may still be cleaning up till 11, but they really expect everything to be over at 9 and to be packed up by 10. So the event is free to the public to sign up. They've made arrangements with the Baptist Church on the east side of Mill Lake for overflow parking.
North side? Are they on the north side?
They are.
Well, they are north of the
Oh,
lake.
they're gonna across the street from there? Okay.
On Orange
Okay,
Avenue.
all right.
They're using the big parking lot
Okay, there's a lot,
associated with the
yes.
Baptist
Sorry.
Church. And, you know, they have done a good job. When we take in an application, we send it out to all of staff. They're not requesting any city resources. and they're paying their own way on everything. So staff reviewed it, and staff recommends approval, subject to 4 conditions, which are outlined in your staff report. They are basically, they need to update the hold harmless agreement and the insurance certificates with the April 6th, 2024 date. They need to pay for the rental of 1 pavilion associated with their tent for food and water. They need to apply for and pay for their sign permit, and we're requesting that they do a complete cleanup and be gone by 11 a.m. With those 4 conditions, city staff recommended approval. This comes to you because they're using the entire park, and it is your policy that these items come to council for approval. So we do recommend approval with the condition.
I have a question about
Go
this.
ahead.
The park will still be open though. I mean, people can still walk the trail and all
Sure.
that. Okay.
Absolutely.
I thought so.
Yeah.
They're not closing the park, and any member of the public who wants to can sign up. I was specifically requested to say that Mark and Christine Robb, who are the formal applicants on this, provide their sincerest apologies that they could not be here this evening. If you had any questions, they would ask that this be continued rather than denied, but compared to your last item, it's a walk in the park.
Literally.
Do we have to make a motion?
Before you do, Mr. O'Connor, I had the same question. It would be open to the public. I'm good with that, as it should be. Yeah, okay, yeah.
Okay. I make a motion to, I guess you would say approve, right?
Yes.
All right, the walkathon special event request to use with conditions.
And to authorize the city manager to approve the permit, to issue the permit.
So moved.
We're in fast language.
Mr. Mayor, should go to the public.
Okay, anyone from the public like to speak to this? Okay, seeing none, bring it back. Any further discussion from council? All right, Kaylee, go ahead and call us.
Councilmember Jarnes?
Yes.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Vice Mayor O'Connor?
Yes.
Councilmember Stafford?
Yeah.
Councilmember Townsend?
Yes.
Mayor Blair?
Yes, and the motion passes. Let's move on to discussion action item B. Approved presentation ranking for Q 187-0-2023/DRS. Architectural/engineering services for the public facilities enhancements project. Christine, it's yours.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. Christine Davis, Assistant City Manager. The city's been working for some time to address needs relating to facilities, specifically our public works, fire, and police. Leading up to tonight, in May, council approved the RSQ, and that was published. In July, we received 10 proposals or responses to the RSQ. The evaluation committee met in August to review the 10 proposals and rank or shortlist them. That was subsequently approved in August as well. After that approval, the evaluation committee, which is staff, appointed Vice Mayor O'Connor, and the ad hoc committee member is Ken Allen. I keep wanting to say Ken Small, and I don't know why. He's somebody from the state of Florida I've known many years.
Yeah, that's a small guy.
Yeah. So, yeah, a little Freudian there. But the committee convened and we had oral presentations by the shortlisted firms. Tonight, we're asking council to approve that shortlist and authorize staff to begin negotiation for contracts for the buildings. Our next step would be to bring those contracts back to council. We're proposing due to the holidays that those would come back in January. The cost associated to build these buildings comes with a pretty hefty price tag, and with that, The architect and engineering contracts will allow us to bring forth 30% design for these buildings. That's also in the grant world called a preliminary architectural report. These are a major requirement for a lot of the grant opportunities that we intend to pursue. So with that, that's the primary first initiative of what will come once these contracts are awarded. A little update on some grant activity. Recently, last week, we submitted to the legislator for legislative appropriations for all 3 buildings. Prior to that, in October, we submitted a grant application under the DEO for the fire department. Just last week, we did receive some questions pertaining to that grant application, which is always positive to know it's being looked at. So we're already started, but there are a lot more grant opportunities out there, and we need to keep moving down this path so that we can be as successful as possible to get as much funding as possible to see these buildings come to fruition. City Manager, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I think you did an excellent job. So we're requesting permission to negotiate 3 contracts for the 3 buildings. That way it gives us the best flexibility in dealing with the situation, and hopefully we pull in money. But as Christine mentioned, without design, we find ourselves falling short of the grant application criteria. So it's really needed.
Any questions for Chris? You done?
I am.
Okay, any questions for Christine?
I will say, as being part of that group, is that they were thoroughly vetted, and what you're talking about, the grants, is the group that was, talking to them, a lot of these companies that we're looking at have grant people to help us as well, which is wonderful. But, you know, there's a lot of, like I said, I think the 4 choices that we got are good choices. Now we can see if we can afford them.
Yeah. I'd just like to thank the evaluation committee. I know Mr. O'Connor was on it. And I joke about Mr. Allen, because he's a very good friend of mine, so I could get away with that. Anyone else, I wouldn't say anything. But, no, I think they did a very thorough job, and I really appreciate all the hard, and they did put a lot of hours in there.
It
And
really
there was a
was.
lot of reading time
And we'll get the
involved.
message to Mr. Allen as well.
Okay,
We
please
appreciate
do. Yeah, he's in Italy right now.
Oh, well, it won't be right away then.
And we had Mr. Gardner still here, who was on one of our subcommittees when they first started looking at it.
He's on our ad hoc.
Yes,
Right.
on our ad hoc committee.
Right.
They
And
put
that's
a lot of
so
hours in as well.
Yes,
so-
they do.
Absolutely.
We appreciate that, Mr. Gardner.
Okay, so, any further
I
discussion?
just got a quick question. When we look at these agencies, do we take into consideration as far as us trying to get someone local? I know the criteria spreads it out to wherever, but do we ever look at that, maybe we're looking at local businesses? I'm not saying this particular one is operating within our area or something like this, but is that a consideration? I'm just asking.
So that would be under our purchasing ordinance. And just a few years ago, at Mr. O'Connor's request, I believe, we looked at all the pros and cons of building in a local option preference. And after considering it, we decided not to go there. And one of the primary reasons why we decided not to go there is we as Orange City don't buy as much as Orange County or the city of Orlando. And if we enact a local option preference, theirs goes in against us.
Correct. Not so much a preference, but just a consideration.
Well, you have to follow the rules on this. And, you know, when you look at evaluation criteria, one of the questions we always ask is, what do you know about Orange City? You know, and how are you familiar with Orange City? So that does come in as a consideration in evaluating these projects, especially if it has to deal with items such as site planning, engineering, or other types of things. If it's, you know, the cost of a particular widget, neither here nor there.
Because from what I can remember, we did select one when we were looking at generators, a local company, which was very good.
they
Based on the
haven't meet
criteria.
all of the criteria.
That's
And
all.
that was Centaur Electric, which is, you know, a premier firm that would be penalized if we enacted a preference.
Understood.
So,
May I add to that?
Yes, sir.
And just, you know, again, going back onto it is, I think 3 of these actually have local offices. But one of the questions we did ask though was, because of the ability or lack of ability of finding workers, we asked them all that. And they are gonna be hiring a lot of local people, because that was one of the questions we as a committee were interested in knowing, is that you can be able to get the materials and you can be able to get the workforce. And they, yes, yeah, and they'll pull it in, but I think a couple of companies actually, one was in Longwood, that made the finalist, and another one was in Orlando, the two I remember. I think, you know,
Depending on your definition of local,
Yes.
we do have, I believe, I got the head nod for Longwood.
yeah.
The top-ranked firm does have an office in Longwood, whether, you know, that it meets the definition of local, but for us it did. In the committee's purview, it was a comfort to know that we weren't dealing with somebody in a New England state and not here, but it was not a deciding factor.
No, and we also looked at projects that they did Central
Absolutely.
Florida local wise as well.
Absolutely.
You know, again, so our chiefs could go out and look at the properties, or anybody else could go out and look at the properties and see, so
Yeah.
it was a consideration as we were going along.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes,
I
sir.
make a motion that we approve the presentation ranking list and authorize the staff to negotiate a contract for each project with the top ranked firm respectively.
I second.
Okay, we got a motion, we got a second. No further discussion. Caleb?
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Vice Mayor O'Connor?
Yes.
Councilmember Stafford? Councilmember Townsend?
Yes.
Councilmember Garnes?
Yes.
Mayor Blair?
Yes, motion passes. Let's move on to item 8C, cost sharing agreement with Park Square Enterprises LLC for water line upsize. And this says John Davis here.
Oh, I apologize. Does it say Mr. Jones?
It says John Davis here. Obviously, it's, Mr. Peters.
Yes, sir, John Peters.
Good, thank you for clarifying that.
In case there's any confusion.
Yes.
I'm gonna give a Reader's Digest version. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
We have budgeted about $877,000 for a water line upgrade relocation along grade between Veterans Memorial and Kentucky. And going through the design process for that, we had some real concerns. The county, because that portion of grade is a county road, they were forcing us to put the line to the extreme south of the right of way. Even with doing that, there was a potential at some point in the future they could tell us to move because we're in there right away. So we had an internal discussion with Robert Lawler and Mary Liz and Danny and myself. We realized that the subdivision was right there. They were putting 8-inch lines through the subdivision. And we decided we would reach out to the developer and see what it would cost to do a cost share agreement to upsize from an 8 to a 12. We basically pay the cost difference for the pipe material and fitting and for the engineering to upsize that. That price ended up being $233,366 for a total savings of $600,000 plus. So we felt like it was a very good deal. Park Square has agreed to the agreement, and so what you have before you is a cost share agreement for the upgrade amount, and we're asking you to approve it and authorize the city manager to sign the agreement.
Good work piggybacking off the other, you know, the developer and that's thinking outside the box. That's excellent.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, that was smart.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion.
Sure.
I'd like to make a motion we approve the attached cost share agreement for Park Square Enterprise LLC in the amount of $223,366 and authorize the city manager to sign the cost share agreement on behalf of the city of Orange City, saving the residents of Orange City over $600,000.
All right.
Second.
Got a motion, got a second. Caleb?
Vice Mayor O'Connor?
Yes.
Councilmember Stafford?
Yeah.
Councilmember
Yes.
Councilmember Garnes,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Blair.
Yes, the motion passes. All right, let's move on to D. Approved work order number 264-23, South Water Treatment Plant Pilot Program Engineering Services, Robert Lawler.
Sir, Mayor, council members, I am Robert Lawler, the Utility Services Director. I'm presenting today on the South Water Treatment Plant Pilot Program. So, background information, so the South Water Treatment Plant is located off of Harley Strickland. It's part of our major public water source between that plant and the main water treatment plant. Currently today, we use aeration and chlorination to treat the water. It's the most basic water treatment that they use in Florida. The South Water Treatment Plant, we currently have 4 wells. 2 of them are located along VMP near the Park Hill development, and then 2 of them are located south on VMP near the hospital south of Harley Strickland. So all 4 of those wells are piped into the South Water Treatment Plant. So this pilot study is part of the integrated water supply plan that was approved in, I want to say, March of 2023. I went ahead and put it, it's in phase 1 here in this red box with the South Plant pilot testing. So the purpose of this pilot program, again, as part of the integrated water supply plan, is to investigate treatment options for enhancing the water quality in the city, to reduce disinfection byproducts or DPPs, and flushing requirements that come with the discoloration from iron, as well as the chemical that's currently being researched by the EPA. That's the group of chemicals called PFAS. So the major goal is the disinfection byproducts. So that forms when chlorine and bromide interact with this natural organic materials in the water. So it depends on the amount of organic material, the bromide, and time. So, the longer the water sits in the pipes, the worse the water quality gets. That's why we do so much flushing. But you can negate that with water treatment up front. So we have to test on a quarterly basis, and the maximum level is 80 micrograms per liter. So we're going to put up the latest testing results showing that our 4 sample points pass with flying colors, and the quarterly average is also underneath the compliance. So these are good numbers. They could be better. And we also want to, again, reduce the flushing that we do. So there's treatment alternatives. So the pilot program, essentially, they will test 4 different treatment alternatives by doing them on a micro level. The alternatives include GAC, which is like a large version of a Brita filter, ion exchange, which is like a large version of water softening, then a couple other processes to be determined. So the process is going to include the initial sampling, lab testing. We investigate, or we analyze that data from the testing, evaluate it. They come up with different cost options for each treatment type, and then they present that before us, and then we'll come back and proceed with the best option. So recommendation tonight is approve the work order for the South Water Treatment Plant pilot program to plumber with an amount of $185,150, and authorize the city manager to execute the work order and approve and execute any subsequent change orders not to exceed a contingency amount of $50,000.
So, Mr. Reichen, we're going to need 2 motions on this, right? Just one motion. Okay. All right, any questions for Mr. Lawler?
I'll make a motion to approve work order number 264-23 for the South Water Treatment Plant Pilot Program to plumber, that's a lot of P's, Inc., in the amount of $185,154, and to authorize city manager to execute the work order and to approve and execute any subsequent change orders not to exceed a contingency amount of $15,000.
Second. Good, have a motion, go to second. Christine? Public? Anyone from the public wants to speak to this? Okay.
Councilmember Stafford. Councilmember Timpson.
Yes.
Councilmember Darms.
Yes.
Councilmember Jones.
Yes.
Vice Mayor O'Connor.
Yes.
Mayor Blair.
Yes, and the motion passes. Let's move on to item E. Oculus, is that how to say that word? Oculus Film Forming Phones, Production Liability Litigation, City Participation and Settlement Process.
Yes, Mr. Mayor and Council. This agenda item is appropriately considered by the council following what you just approved. Because what you just approved was a pilot testing for dealing with matters that are in our potable water as we get them from the ground. And we're trying to prevent those items from being in our potable water. You heard the terms total organic carbon, and you also heard polyfluorinated substances or PFASs. And the testing is to find out and to investigate options for treatment to deal with those substances. And the problem with PFASs, as is indicated in the agenda item, is that these are, the regulation of these and what can be and what should not be in potable water is still not exactly known because it's being determined as we speak. In other words, the standards are being set by the federal and state governments, and they're not final yet. So the city of Orange City is way ahead. We've done the testing, we know what we've got, and we're way ahead in trying to deal with how to, once we get the final numbers from the federal and state governments, then we'll be in a position to do the necessary final testing and to do what's necessary with regard to these substances. This process is not inexpensive. So this agenda item that I'm getting to right now is a way to try to help cover some of those expenses. And the city has received, as well as almost every other local government and other provider of potable water in the United States of America, have received these notices from this federal court in South Carolina, which is in charge of this multi-district litigation. And the bottom line is it's like a class action lawsuit, but it's not. You've got a whole lot of plaintiffs, hundreds, tens of thousands of potable water suppliers that are suing in federal court, and it's been consolidated in South Carolina in this multi-district litigation. And the defendants, and there's a lot of defendants, and there's two of them that are pertinent right now. And one is, and they're all, a lot of them are big companies, like the two that are in your agenda item, 3M and DuPont. And this litigation is extremely technical. It involves many steps, and it's not going to be just a matter of submitting a form and being done with it. We've all received, well, not all, a lot of us have received, and you get your mail, there'll be a notice of a class action lawsuit, and you could file some sort of a claim, and you're probably going to get $1.85 in the mail about 9 months later. Okay, that's not what this is. This is a much more cumbersome, difficult process. So when the city of Orange City, and I was working with Magdalia and her staff, received these notices, and we started looking into exactly what this process entails. We spoke with a lot of different law firms, and we reached the conclusion that the best chance for maximizing the amount of money that the city of Orange City can recover probably will not be a total recovery of what we ultimately will have to spend to make our water the way we want it. But to achieve as much as possible from this litigation, the best way to accomplish that is to hire lawyers. And those are the ones that are identified in the exhibit to the agenda item, which is a legal services agreement. And it's a group of 3 different law firms, and this is all they do. And what they're going to do is they're going to tell us, and on our behalf, so, tell us what we need to do. And the first thing that we need to do is to stay in, we're not going to opt out. We're not going to opt out of the settlements, and there's 2 pending settlements, DuPont and 3M. We're not going to opt out. We're going to see what we can get. And there's claims. So the next step is we submit claims. And how much we are going to get from these settlements will ultimately depend upon how much the final amount is from 3M and DuPont, how much we will determine it's going to cost to deal with this. And of course, a lot of this depends upon what the final numbers are from the parts per billion of these chemicals in our potable water supply. And then how much do we have in our potable water that we're getting out of our well waters? So we submit those claims, and then that's not necessarily it. There's a lot of other defendants in this existing lawsuit too. And these law firms, they're on the committee that was formed by the federal court to represent the plaintiffs. So that's one of the reasons that your staff and I am recommending that you retain these 3 law firms that are working hand in glove to best represent you, because this is not like going into small claims court in Volusia County and trying to get $9,000. This is something that you've got to keep your eye on the ball all the time. The cost of it is going to be, it's a contingency arrangement. It's not hourly, it's contingency. It's 25%, and that's if they recover. At this point, I would, you never predict this kind of litigation, but I would imagine that there will be some monies coming to Orange City. And it's going to be not just from 3M and DuPont, but then there's going to be additional defendants that will either settle or they'll go to trial. And then there's going to be additional claims down the road for stormwater and wastewater. This is just potable water. So that's why, your option is, well, you could hire a law firm, another law firm, and they pay them hourly. I can't recommend that, because that's, you have no idea what that could be. You ask us to do it. I don't have that expertise. And I know that our law firm could submit the claim, but this is much more than just submitting a claim in a class action lawsuit. So what we're bringing to you is and it's in the agenda, and we're asking you to approve the legal services agreement, and as is indicated, to delegate to your city manager authority for the execution, that you participate in both the 3M and the DuPont settlements as I described, and you direct the outside counsel, which are the 3 law firms that you're going to retain, to file all appropriate claims and a complaint to protect the city's interest, and then finally to delegate to the city manager authority for execution of any documents related to the claims process. And of course, as these matters, as the final settlements, hopefully will be large, come back, we will follow up with you and report to you. We'll know a lot more about, what are we going to have to do, how much is it going to cost, and how much are we going to get? I guess those are the three key questions for the purposes of the taxpayers and for you.
Mr. Johnson?
You actually answered my question. My question was if they're working on a contingency, or if we're having to come up with a monetary amount that we have to pay.
You do not. You do not. In fact, if there is no recovery, you don't have to pay a dime. There is no requirement for you to cover costs. And a lot of the costs have already been incurred. There's costs that the lawyers have incurred, and then there's costs that we have incurred in doing our testing already. And those will be part of the claim form that these law firms would submit on your behalf if you approve the legal services agreement this evening.
Okay, anyone else have any questions, concerns, anything? Anyone from the public like to speak on this? Mr. Sanders, come on up, please.
Stephen Sanders, 623 Swan Range Road. So PFAS are prevalent, and they're here in Orange City, obviously. But us hiring a firm that I guess is somebody that you've chosen for us for the city, is there any referral fee that you'd be getting back in referring them to us as a city?
Not a dime.
Okay. And if there's no cost to us, are they going to cover our testing fees? Are they going to be charged any fees for any public records in regards to these fees?
The cost would be their cost of providing the litigation expenses. There's discovery, there might be depositions, there could be a production of documents. What we will be submitting in the claim will be the cost that the city has already incurred in doing the testing, and there will be additional costs. Those are not necessarily the bills that the lawyers pay. This is the bills that the city pays to provide the information that is necessary for the lawyer to submit that to the federal court in South Carolina, so that there's a series of factors, there's a test, a formula, if you will, that applies to everybody, not just Orange City, but all the claimants. And you've got to have some information. It's like an algebra. You've got to fill in the X's and the Y's and the Z's, and to do that, you've got to spend some money to do the testing.
No, and trust me, I understand that. Like, I've spent money on the water samples here just so that way I know. I'm just trying to make sure that there's an equal playing field, or even playing field when it comes to, we're talking about water records and giving an entire firm access to our city's water infrastructure in the sense of like their liability or what they're gonna get out of this. We're kind of, putting our hands, or I guess our money in their hands. Is that what I'm getting at?
Well, they have an incentive, if you want to look at it from a purely business standpoint, they have an incentive to acquire for the city of Orange City as much money as possible from DuPont and 3M, because they get 25% of that.
Now, will we have access to those records?
It's public records.
So, I mean, their discovery that they find.
I would say that there will come a point in time when all of that will be a public record. I can't speak to whether there might be some records during the course of the litigation that would be privileged because of some sort of court order out of the federal court or something like that. But the laws regarding Chapter 119 of the Florida statutes will apply like any other public record. And you know, this is something that we want to be transparent about. We want to get ahead of this. We are getting ahead of this. You know, this is the process to exercise our due diligence, this city's due diligence, to fix the water, and then to try to have that fixed cost of taxpayers as little as possible.
Understood. I just wanted to confirm those few nuances just so on the record. So appreciate it.
All right, anyone else in the public? All right, council, any further discussion?
Mr. Mayor, make a motion to approve the selection of attorney for special counsel, retainer agreement, exhibit A that was shown, and to delegate the city manager authority to execute the retainer agreement, and participation in both the 3M and DuPont settlements, directing and recommending special counsel to file all appropriate claims and complaints to protect the city's interests, and to delegate the city manager authority for execution of any documents related to the claims process in the 3M and DuPont settlements.
Second.
The motion goes, that's a long one there.
It's like a lawyer prepared it or something.
They get paid by the hour.
By the word.
Yeah, all right. Okay, Caleb.
Councilmember Timpson,
Yes.
Councilmember Jarvis,
Yes.
Councilmember Jones,
Yes.
Vice Mayor O'Connor,
Yes.
Councilmember Stafford,
Here.
Mayor Blair.
Yes, and the motion passes. Let's move on to F, selection of potential date or dates for city strategic planning update. Taylor Harrington, all yours.
Yes, thank you very much. As you'll recollect, last year, we went through a strategic planning process and developed a very comprehensive strategic plan in January of 2023 that really covers 2 years. And we've been working on it and have made a lot of accomplishments, I think, on what you all asked us to do. But it's always good to have these things in a rolling 2 years. So following the adoption of our budget in September, council asked that we go back and see if Dr. Marlowe were available to do an update to this, so that we would wind up with a strategic plan for the period 24-26. And we could cross anything off the list that we had actually finished, although most of the items were multi-year projects, and we could reconsider whether to stop with any initiatives we had started or add any new ones. So I went and contacted Dr. Marlowe, and he had the dates that are available and listed in your agenda item as your Saturday. And he would use a similar methodology as he did last year, which is come in and conduct one-on-one interviews with each of you on Thursday and Friday. And then he and I would meet and develop materials for the Saturday meeting. And we would have the strategic plan session the next day on Saturday. So I've only posted the Saturday dates, thinking that the Thursday and Friday proceeding it would be just fine. And I wanted to go through and get from you your priority dates at least two that I could also then query Ms. Marks about and see if we can't have a full house. So, it may be easiest to do this by person or by date, whichever way you prefer, to see if it would work. The dates are January 13th, which is a 3-day weekend of ML King Day. And I will tell you, it is not my preference to do it on that day. There's a lot of celebrations going around that everybody will want to participate in countywide. And it will diminish my ability to make sure that I've got all the necessary staff on hand. Everyone likes a 3-day weekend.
Yeah, I cross out both 3-day weekends.
Yeah, I would say, and I don't know if the council agrees, but the 3-day weekends just,
Wonderful.
we don't want those,
Okay,
right?
that sounds
Okay.
good. That leaves us then with January 20th. And how about if I call your name and you just say yes or no? Mr. Blair on January 20th?
Yes, I always like doing these early as possible in the year, and so, yes, that's my number one choice.
Councilwoman Jones?
I'm open to any, so whatever, you can leave
okay.
me off your list.
I
I'll just show
will,
up.
I'll just write yes on all of these. Ms. Stafford?
I'm along with Ms. Jones.
Wonderful. Well, then I'll go back and ask you, Mr. Blair, how about all of them? That is easier.
Well, for me, January 20th and February 10th are my priorities. If they don't work, then we go to March 9th or 16th.
And my two the same, says 20th preferred, just go, I don't wanna wait till March if we don't have to.
Right.
Okay. I made sure these dates did not clash with either the Manatee Festival or the Diversity Festival, so we're good on that. Mr. Tienson?
These are my 2, 3, 4 calendars. February 10th would be good for me.
Okay. I'll ask Ms. Marks, I'd like a second date if I could.
Okay.
The dates again were January 20th, which is a preference so far for many, February 10th, March 9th, or March 16th.
March 9th is good for me.
Thank you for realizing. I wasn't gonna say that.
March 16th too late? No, March 9th. I'll say, March 9th,
Okay.
secondary.
Can't do January 20th.
And,
No, I can't do it.
Ms. Jones?
Are we meeting with him on these dates, or you said Thursday or Friday?
Yes, you'll have 2 meetings. One will be set up on Thursday or Friday as an individual meeting with him. I won't even be there. You and he will talk about what's important to you, okay? And then based upon all of the individual conversations, we sit down and develop our materials for the workshop that is held on Saturday.
It's like the big one that we had this past year, where we all had the round table.
I'd say the January 20th or February 10th. Get it over with.
So, so far, the only date where I've got everybody, that I'll work for is February 10th. So, I've heard that January 20th is out of the question for, Council Member Tienson, but that March 9th works, and I know it's not a preference.
March 9th won't work for me, I'm away to Aruba. Aruba.
How about, let's then look at March 16th. you know, Councilmember Marks is not here, and although I'm very hopeful that she'll be able to make February 10th work, it would be my preference to have all 7 council members in attendance and leave no one out. So I'd like a second day if it's possible.
So we're down to February 10th or March 16th, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
Can people schedule off tentatively on March 16th?
Is that,
That it is St.
Spring
Patrick's
break?
Day.
Spring break.
that's
Yeah,
kind of
that's
right.
a
It
tough
is
one.
spring break.
Yeah, it's probably not gonna work for me.
They're going to college.
No, I was thinking with O'Connor, St. Patty's Day, come on.
Get rid
That's where I was.
I know what I'll be doing.
So am I hearing of February 10th, and just let Ms. Marks know that was the only day that we could get everybody?
All right.
Well, we'll see how that works. I'm hopeful it will, and if not, I'll be back. And if it doesn't work, you know, we can always go one more year without an update. I just like to keep the initiative going and make sure, you know, throughout the course of the year, and in fact, even tonight, people have said they want to look at other things. So, hey,
Well,
so that's why it's important to do this.
February 10th is the start of the Lunar New Year, so. It really is. Isn't it?
What is that? Okay, February 10th then? All righty, thank you.
Okay, let's move on to item G, election of the vice mayor. Haley, how are you gonna do this?
Haley Bryson, City Clerk. So section 2.03 of the city charter provides that council elect a vice mayor annually at their first regular meeting in November. It also further states that any council member may serve no more than 2 consecutive years as vice mayor. Vice Mayor O'Connor has just completed his first of 2 consecutive years, so he is eligible for re-election to position at the time. The recommended procedure is to open the discussion amongst council and allow for nominations. If only one nomination is made, that person would automatically be elected. If more than one nominee, the mayor will call for a voice vote on each nominee.
Okay, yes, sir.
I will have to say, I would not mind being for a second year, just gonna be honest.
Okay.
You know, I have shirts now, so.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you don't mind. I'm gonna pass the gavel here, and I'm gonna nominate, Vice Mayor O'Connor to be vice mayor once again.
I agree. No,
We need
You've
a,
done a great job, though.
Thank you.
he does a very good job. Okay, we need to vote on this.
Hearing that there are no other nominations, then I think it would be appropriate to make a motion to approve and accept the vice mayor as the next vice mayor.
Okay, I'll look up the motion. We have a motion, I have a motion.
Okay,
Your second. We have a motion and a second for the vice mayor to remain the vice mayor. One more year. One more year.
you want a voice vote?
Voice vote? That's
All in
fine.
favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Congratulations.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all for the vote of confidence.
Yep. You're doing a good job, Bill. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, item H, consideration of sponsorship request, Backpack Buddies food giveaways. Ms. Arrington,
Yes, that's me.
I know that's you.
So this is really a simple request that is in front of you. An application was received by our office on October 26th or 27th, and it was by Backpack Buddies, which is a not-for-profit organization that does many, many different things throughout our community. And one of the things they do is they hold a number of food drops each year. And those food drops provide food baskets and staples and meat, whatever is available to them through different agencies. And it's distributed on a first-come, first-served basis from PSC Emory Bennett Park. And although that's a county-owned facility and you don't have anything to do with that, it's within the city limits. And because it's in the city limits, the city is responsible for traffic control and helping to organize this. So we received the request from Backpack Buddies, and they're asking for in-kind donations of time and equipment for 4 food drops. The first one is in December, which is why we needed to amend this agenda to put it on your agenda. The first one is in the first week of December.
December
And-
1st.
Yes, thank you. And, so we convened a special meeting on Monday of the review committee to review this. And everyone agreed, and the motion was made that we would recommend that the city council authorize in-kind services for 4 food drops, with the first one being on December 1. It was a unanimous vote by the 5 committee members. So I wanted to bring that forward to you. We found it to be consistent with all of our criteria and wholeheartedly recommend its approval. Ms. Marks is out of town this week, so I'm authorized not to act on her behalf, but to represent the city on this. The actual cost of our staff time and services is not overly burdensome. The last one that we benchmarked was March food drop, and that was it was somewhere between $350 and $360 worth of in-kind time. So, which is how we track it on an Excel spreadsheet. So, haven't done it from the last one yet, because I'm spread a little thin these days, not having an event coordinator, trying to, I know, do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, we anticipate that the costs are running between $350 and $400 per event, which is certainly, within our ability to make our individual operational budgets work. So with that, we would recommend that you approve it.
Okay, any questions, discussion, city manager on this? All right, anyone from the public want to speak on this? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion.
I make the motion to approve the in-kind donation request for Backpack Buddies for their food drops in fiscal year 2023.
We got a second, motion and a second. Go ahead, Phil.
Councilmember Jones?
Yes.
Vice Mayor O'Connor?
Yes.
Councilmember Stafford? Councilmember Johnson?
Yes.
Councilmember Doherty?
Yes.
Mayor Blair?
Yes, and the motion passes. All right, let's move on to item number 9, reports. 9A, the city manager report.
Well, I have a report and a request for guidance, and I'm going to need you all to bear with me because I really don't know what to do. The Historic Preservation Board had a meeting on November 2nd, and they had another meeting on November 16th, in which our action item will be considered. At their November 2nd meeting, they made 3 requests of the city council, and 2 of them are easy and 1 of them is a sticky wicket. So let me go through the easy ones first. First, they asked if they could be agended for a meeting in February to give a presentation to council. I think that should be on the agenda, and they can give you a presentation. The second item was that they asked that the city submit to them the historic designations for 2 of our buildings, one being City Hall and the other being Alberta's Cottage. And that's where we get our bronze plaque and we get our buildings formally on the city's register. And I think that's a yes too, you would want to do that. It doesn't really have any special architectural requirements that go along with it. So aside from paying for the plaque, it's okay. The third one is more difficult because it involves something that you all have been working on for a couple of years, and I've been trying to follow your direction on. As you know, people have not been using the shuffleboard courts for quite a while, and they're in a state of disrepair. We went and had a 4-point inspection done by our own building services team in, I think, springtime of 2021, without looking at the date. And because we were in the middle of our Parks and Recreation master plan at that time, we just took that into advisement. And the 4-point inspection plan was pretty glum about the state of the building. It indicated that it had, it's severely out of code for public use, and that the electrical system needed to be reworked. The plumbing systems needed to be reworked. The mechanical, which is your air conditioning and heat, were non-existent and had not been properly installed, and that we had flooring and roofing issues, which are seen on the interior ceiling where you've got cracks on the ceiling. That isn't necessarily indicative that there's a roofing problem, but there may be. And then there's some wall deterioration, predominantly around the exterior doorways and windowways and where the air conditioning units are. So the 4-point inspection, outlined quite a number of other minor issues with it, but it recommended that the building be raised. During our Parks and Recreation master planning, the